March 31, 1944. Burma. Late morning. At 15,000 feet above the jungle, a young American officer hangs alone in the sky. Second Lieutenant Owen John Baggett is 23 years old. He is bleeding. His bomber is gone. His crew is scattered across miles of open air. And Japanese fighter planes are circling like hawks. 6 minutes earlier, Owen was inside a B-24 Liberator, flying toward a railway bridge deep in enemy territory. Now, the aircraft is nothing but burning pieces falling through clouds. The mission is over. The war, however, is very much alive. Below him is nothing but green jungle. No friendly troops. No rescue teams. No safe landing zone. Only mountains, trees, and enemy soldiers. Above him, 3 Japanese Zero fighters move in wide circles. They are not looking for planes anymore. They are hunting men. White parachutes dot the sky like slow-moving targets. 12 American airmen float helplessly downward. Each one swings beneath silk fabric, exposed, unarmed, and easy to kill. This part of the war is brutal. There are no cameras. No witnesses. No war crimes courts yet. In this theater, shooting parachuting airmen is common practice. It happens often. It is rarely talked about. The Japanese pilots know this airspace belongs to them. They take their time. Owen Baggett feels the cold first. At this altitude, the air is thin and bitter. His breath fogs in front of his face. His hands are stiff inside leather gloves. His body shakes, partly from cold, partly from blood loss. Shrapnel tore through his left thigh during the bomber's final moments. Warm blood soaks his flight suit. Every heartbeat sends another pulse of pain through his leg. He tries to stay calm. Panic will not help him now. Owen looks around. One parachute drifts far to his left. Another below him. Others farther out, almost lost against the clouds. He counts quickly. 12 men jumped. He sees 11 parachutes. One is missing. He does not ask where it went. The Japanese fighters break formation. 1-0 peels away and dives. Owen watches helplessly as the fighter lines up behind another American airman. The pilot fires. Machine gun tracers rip through the parachute canopy. The white silk explodes into torn ribbons. The American falls, spinning wildly, arms flailing, screaming until the wind tears the sound away. There is nothing Owen can do. The Zero pulls up smoothly and circles back. Another fighter lines up on a second parachute. This one attacks from the front. The American jerks once, then goes limp. His body hangs still as he continues to fall. The fighter does not even slow down. This is not combat. This is execution. Owen's stomach tightens. His mouth goes dry. He knows the math. 3 fighters. Too many targets. The Japanese will kill every man in the sky unless something changes. Owen reaches down to his left hip. His fingers touch the grip of his pistol. A Colt M1911A1. Standard issue. Heavy. Reliable. Familiar. He has fired it on training ranges. Never in combat. Never in the air. The pistol holds 7 rounds in the magazine, 1 in the chamber. 8 shots total. Against an aircraft, it is useless. Against trained fighter pilots flying at hundreds of miles per hour, it is a joke. The army gave him this weapon to survive on the ground, to scare animals, to defend himself if captured, to signal rescuers. No one ever imagined it might be used like this. Owen leaves the pistol where it is. Not yet. The Zero that killed the first man turns toward Owen's direction. It begins to close the distance. As it approaches, Owen's thoughts drift, strangely, back to Texas. He grew up in Graham, a small town where everyone knew everyone else. His father ran a dry goods store. Owen helped stock shelves, sweep floors, carry boxes. Before the war, he pumped gas at a Magnolia station for 70 cents an hour. He saved his money. Used it for flying lessons. That was the dream. Flying. When war came after Pearl Harbor, Owen enlisted almost immediately. He wanted to fly fighters. He wanted to chase enemy planes, not sit in the belly of a bomber. But during training, the doctors shook their heads. His eyesight missed the standard by a single line. Just one. That was enough. No fighters. They sent him to bombers instead. Now, drifting through open sky with blood running down his leg, Owen almost laughs at the irony. He wanted to fight Japanese fighters. Now he will, with a pistol. The Zero keeps coming. The aircraft is beautiful in a deadly way. Smooth lines. Long wings. Painted metal glinting in the sun. No armor. No protection for the pilot. Fast, agile, deadly. The pilot slows down. That catches Owen's attention. The fighter reduces speed, slipping closer, closer than the others did. It is not firing yet. The pilot wants to look. Owen understands the mistake immediately. The pilot thinks he is already dead. Owen lets his head fall forward. He relaxes his arms. He stops moving. Blood dripping from his leg darkens the white parachute straps. From a distance, it looks convincing. The Zero slides in beside him. Close. Very close. 30 feet. Owen can see the pilot's goggles. The leather cap. The shape of his face. The Japanese pilot opens his canopy to see better. That decision seals his fate. Owen moves. Fast. Smooth. His right hand snaps to the pistol. The leather holster creaks softly. He brings the weapon up with one arm extended, body twisting slightly in the harness. There is no time to think. No time to aim properly. Only instinct. He squeezes the trigger. The first shot cracks through the air. The bullet punches through the open cockpit. The Japanese pilot jerks in surprise. Owen fires again. The second shot smashes metal and glass. The pilot begins to pull away. Too late. Owen fires a third time. This round finds its mark. The Zero shudders. Its nose dips. The aircraft tilts and begins to fall. Owen fires one more shot as the fighter drops away, then watches as it spins downward, faster and faster, until it disappears into the green ocean below. Seconds later, a fireball erupts through the jungle canopy. Owen hangs there, stunned. The impossible has happened. But the fight is not over. 2 Japanese fighters still remain. And they are still hunting. Owen checks his pistol. For shots fired. 3 rounds left. He breathes slowly, forcing calm back into his body. Below him, the jungle waits. Above him, death still circles. And the long fall is far from finished. The burning wreckage of the Japanese fighter fades behind Owen Baggott as it falls into the jungle. Black smoke rises through the trees, twisting slowly into the blue sky. For a moment, the sky feels quiet. Then the engines return. Owen hears them before he sees them. The sharp, angry whine of aircraft engines slicing through cold air. 2 Japanese Zeros remain, still circling, still hunting. They do not know what just happened. They do not yet understand that one of their own is gone. Owen hangs in his parachute harness, heart pounding so hard it feels like it might tear through his chest. His right hand grips the pistol. His arm aches from holding it steady. His fingers are numb from the cold. He forces himself to breathe. Slow. Deep. Panicking now would kill him faster than any bullet. He looks around again. 6 American parachutes remain in the sky. 6 men still alive. Not for long. One of the Zeros dives toward another drifting parachute. This man is farther away, nearly 1,000 yards from Owen. The fighter fires a short burst. The parachute jerks. The man inside slumps forward but continues to fall. The pilot does not waste time confirming. He climbs again. The second Zero circles wide, scanning, choosing its next target. Owen realizes something important. The Japanese pilots are not expecting resistance. They are not watching carefully. They believe they control the sky completely. That gives him one small advantage. But it is shrinking with every second. Owen checks his altitude. Still high. Too high. Minutes remain before he reaches the ground. Minutes where he is exposed, hanging helplessly in open air. The cold worsens. His breath comes out in sharp bursts. His wounded leg burns and throbs. Blood loss makes his head feel light, almost floating. He tightens his grip on the pistol. 3 bullets left. That knowledge sits heavy in his mind. 3 chances. Nothing more. 1-0 turns toward him again. This one does not slow down. It approaches faster, angrier, perhaps alerted by the crash of its squadron mate. Owen considers firing again. But the distance is too great. The angle is wrong. He holds his fire. The fighter streaks past him, missing by dozens of yards, then pulls up sharply. The pilot is testing something now. Measuring. Owen stays still. Dead men don't shoot. The fighter circles again, wider this time. Owen's arms begin to ache from hanging limp. His muscles tremble. He worries the movement will give him away. He forces himself to relax. Let the harness hold him. Let the pain exist. Another American parachute collapses in the distance. Owen watches helplessly as the man falls, spinning wildly, shrinking as he drops. That makes for dead. 8 jumped. For remain alive in the sky, including Owen. The odds are getting worse. The Japanese fighters split up. One goes after a parachute drifting low and fast. The other stays high, scanning. Owen realizes something else. The remaining pilots are being cautious now. They know something strange happened. They are adjusting. That means his earlier trick will not work again. No pilot will slow down and drift close anymore. Owen understands this is now only about survival. Not heroics. Not kills. Just staying alive long enough to reach the ground. He checks below. The jungle rises closer now. Individual trees become visible. Tall teak and bamboo form a thick, endless canopy. No clearings. No rivers nearby. No villages in sight. Just green. He knows Japanese troops patrol this area heavily. The moment his feet touch the ground, a different kind of danger begins. But first, he must survive the air. The Zero dives again, this time at another American. The pilot fires longer bursts now, staying farther back. The parachute tears. The man screams. Then vanishes downward. Owen shuts his eyes for a moment. For men left. The Zero climbs away. The second Zero begins another run. Owen knows his time is coming. He tightens his grip on the pistol. If the fighter comes close enough, he will fire. If it does not, he will die. Simple as that. The Zero turns toward him. The aircraft approaches from the side, not behind. The pilot is smarter now. He is watching for movement. Owen lets his head hang. His arm hangs loose. The pistol rests against his leg. The fighter slows slightly, not as much as before, but enough to observe. Still too far. Still out of range. The pilot watches. Waits. Owen's arm trembles involuntarily. The Zero pulls up suddenly. It does not attack. Instead, it veers away. Owen realizes the pilot has chosen a different target. Relief washes over him, brief, fragile. The Japanese fighter dives on another parachute instead. This man is close to the treetops now. The pilot fires. The parachute collapses. The body drops into the jungle. Silence again. Owen counts. 3 Americans remain alive. 3. The fighters regroup. They circle higher now. Slower. They are running low on ammunition. Low on fuel. They have already done enough damage. They do not need to kill every last man to succeed. Owen watches as 1-0 breaks off and heads east. The second lingers, making one last wide circle. Then it too turns away. The sky grows quiet. Owen barely believes it. His legs shake from relief and exhaustion. The fighters are gone. For now. He lowers the pistol slowly and slips it back into the holster. His hand feels weak, almost numb. The adrenaline begins to fade. Pain rushes in to replace it. His leg throbs violently. His entire body aches from cold and stress. He focuses downward. The jungle canopy rushes closer now. He prepares for landing. He bends his knees slightly. Tries to remember his training. Roll if possible. Avoid trees if you can, though there is no avoiding trees here. Branches tear at his parachute as he enters the canopy. Leaves slap his face. Twigs snap and scratch. The silk canopy tangles above him. Then suddenly. Impact. Hard. Pain explodes through his wounded leg. He crashes against a thick tree trunk and slides down, landing awkwardly on the forest floor. The world goes silent. No engines. No gunfire. Only insects and distant birds. Owen lies still, gasping. Alive. Barely. He forces himself to move. Slowly, carefully, he unclips the parachute harness. The silk canopy hangs tangled above him, bright white against dark green leaves. That could get him killed. He pulls out his knife and cuts the lines, letting the parachute collapse into the undergrowth. He drags himself away from the landing spot. Every movement sends pain through his leg. Blood continues to flow. He knows he must stop it. Using parachute cord, he ties a tight tourniquet above the wound. His hands shake as he pulls it tight. The bleeding slows. He leans back against a tree, breathing hard. The jungle smells wet and alive. Danger surrounds him now from every direction. Japanese patrols. Snakes. Insects. Disease. He checks his supplies. 1 pistol. 3 bullets. 1 knife. 1 canteen. No food. No map. No radio. No compass. Enemy territory in every direction. Owen looks up through the trees at the sky he just fell from. He thinks of the men who did not make it. The ones who died screaming. The ones who never even saw the ground. He whispers a quiet promise to himself. I will not die here. Not today. He waits until nightfall. When darkness comes, he begins to crawl. Night comes quickly in the Burmese jungle. There is no long sunset. One moment the light fades, and the next, darkness drops like a curtain. The air turns heavy and wet. The sounds change. Birds fall silent. Insects take over. Owen Baggett waits until he can no longer see the outline of the trees clearly. Only then does he move. Every lesson he ever learned about survival comes back to him now. Move at night. Stay low. Make no noise. Avoid trails and water paths. Never light a fire. He pushes himself forward inch by inch. His injured leg drags behind him. Each movement sends pain through his body, but he does not stop. Stopping is dangerous. Resting too long could mean discovery. The Japanese army controls this region completely. Patrols move constantly. They know an American bomber went down nearby. They will be searching. Owen crawls through leaves, mud, and roots. The jungle floor is alive. Insects bite exposed skin. Ants crawl up his sleeves. Something slithers past his hand once, and he freezes, heart racing, until it disappears. He does not scream. He does not curse. He keeps going. He travels without direction at first, simply putting distance between himself and the crash site. Later, when the stars appear through gaps in the canopy, he begins to steer west. West means hope. West means Allied lines, far away, but possible. By dawn, his body feels hollow. His head spins. The tourniquet cuts into his leg painfully, but he knows loosening it could start the bleeding again. When daylight approaches, he hides. He crawls beneath thick undergrowth, presses himself against the earth, and pulls leaves over his body. He lies still as the jungle wakes up around him. Hours pass. He hears voices. Japanese voices. Boots. Metal equipment clanking. A patrol passes within yards of him. Owen does not move. Not even when sweat drips into his eyes. Not even when his leg cramps painfully. He thinks of Texas. Of hot summers. Of the smell of dust and gasoline. Of quiet evenings when nothing mattered more than the end of the workday. The patrol moves on. When the sun sets again, Owen moves. Day 1 ends that way. No food. Almost no water. Pain everywhere. But alive. On the second night, he reaches a small stream. The water is muddy, but moving. He kneels slowly and drinks, careful not to splash. The water tastes like earth and decay, but it keeps him alive. He refills his canteen. Still no food. Hunger gnaws at him, but thirst is worse. He keeps moving. The jungle is endless. Every step looks like the last. Trees blend together. The ground rises and falls gently. He climbs low ridges and slides down into shallow valleys. He stumbles often. Once, he falls hard and bites his lip. Blood fills his mouth. He swallows it and keeps going. By the third day, fever begins. It starts as chills. Then shaking. Then heat. His head pounds. His thoughts become slow and cloudy. He knows the signs. Malaria. Or something like it. He cannot stop. Stopping means death. He moves mostly by instinct now. Night. Crawl. Hide. Day. Stillness. On the fourth day, his wound turns ugly. The skin around it is red and swollen. The pain changes, deeper, sharper. Infection. He loosens the tourniquet briefly to allow some blood flow, then tightens it again. He cleans the wound as best he can with water. It is not enough. He knows it. But knowing does not change anything. On the fifth day, Owen collapses. It happens suddenly. One moment he is moving. The next, the world tilts sideways. He falls near a narrow animal trail, barely wide enough for a water buffalo. He tries to get up. His body refuses. He lies there, breathing shallowly, eyes half open. The jungle spins slowly above him. This is how it ends, he thinks. Not in the sky. Not under gunfire. But quietly, alone, in the dirt. Voices reach him through the fog. Japanese voices again. Closer this time. He tries to move. Fails. Boots appear in his vision. Hands grab him roughly. Someone shouts. Owen fades out. When he wakes again, he is no longer free. His hands are tied. He is lying on a wooden cart. Japanese soldiers walk beside him, rifles slung casually. They speak to each other without urgency. To them, he is already finished. They take him to a holding area first, then transport him deeper into occupied territory. Eventually, Owen arrives at Rangoon Central Prison. The gates close behind him with a heavy sound. Inside, the smell hits first. Human waste. Sweat. Disease. Too many men packed into too little space. Owen is thrown into a cell with other Allied prisoners. Most are airmen like him. Thin. Hollow-eyed. Sick. No one speaks much. There is no energy for talking. Days blend together. Food comes rarely and in small amounts. Thin rice water. Sometimes nothing at all. Beatings are common. Interrogations come without warning. The Japanese want information. Bombing routes. Airfields. Aircraft numbers. Owen gives them only what he is allowed to give. Name. Rank. Serial number. Nothing more. For that, he pays. They break his ribs during one session. In another, they leave him without food for nearly a week. Once, they lock him inside a wooden box barely large enough to crouch in. No light. No air movement. Tropical heat presses in from all sides. He stays there for days. He survives by counting. Seconds. Minutes. Hours. He does math problems in his head. He recites memories. He thinks of ice cream. Of cold drinks. Of baseball games. Anything to stay sane. Months pass. Men die. Disease kills faster than guards. 2 of the men from his bomber crew arrive at the prison weeks later. They recognize each other. They do not celebrate. They simply sit together when they can. 2 more die within months. Owen survives. Barely. In early 1945, the sounds change again. This time, they are distant explosions. Artillery. Bombing. The war is moving. In May 1945, British forces reach Rangoon. The prison gates open. Owen walks out weighing 93 pounds. His uniform hangs on him like cloth on a frame. He cannot walk far without help. But he is alive. The war did not kill him. The jungle did not kill him. The prison did not kill him. He survives. And he carries something with him that no one yet believes. A story so unlikely that even he sometimes questions it. But the truth does not care about belief. It waits. Freedom does not feel the way Owen Baggott imagined it would. When the prison gates at Rangoon finally open in May of 1945, there is no cheering. No shouting. No relief that comes all at once. Just quiet confusion and exhaustion. Owen steps outside slowly, supported by a British medic on one side and another former prisoner on the other. His legs feel weak. His body feels unfamiliar, as if it no longer fully belongs to him. He weighs 93 pounds. Before the war, he weighed 165. His cheeks are sunken. His teeth are damaged. His ribs show through his skin. His eyes look older than his years. But he is alive. That alone feels unreal. They take him to a field hospital first. Doctors examine him carefully, shaking their heads at what they see. Malaria. Severe malnutrition. Infection in his leg wound. Broken ribs that healed badly. Parasites. Dental damage. They write notes quietly. Owen stays in a hospital bed for weeks. At first, he sleeps almost constantly. His body finally allows itself to rest. When he wakes, he eats slowly, small portions at a time. His stomach can no longer handle real meals. Sometimes, at night, he wakes suddenly, heart racing, convinced he hears aircraft engines overhead. There are none. The war is ending. In July of 1945, Owen is finally cleared to return home. The journey feels endless. Boat. Train. Another train. Then Texas. When he steps off the train in California for processing, he barely recognizes his reflection in a window. He looks like a stranger. Older. Thinner. Hardened in ways that do not show clearly on the surface. The army officers ask questions. Routine questions. What happened to your aircraft? Where did you land? Were you captured? Owen answers carefully. Then comes the debriefing. A young officer sits across from him with a notepad. Polite. Professional. Neutral. Owen tells the story. About the parachutes. About the Zero slowing down. About drawing his pistol. About firing. About the fighter crashing. The officer listens without interrupting. He writes steadily. When Owen finishes, the officer nods once. He says nothing about medals. Nothing about recognition. He marks the report unconfirmed. There were no witnesses. No recovered wreckage. No way to prove it. The war is full of unbelievable stories. Most are not true. Owen understands. He does not argue. He is too tired. He boards another train. This one takes him home. When Owen returns to Graham, Texas, the town welcomes him warmly. There is a small parade. People line the street. They shake his hand. They tell him how proud they are. They ask questions. What was it like? Did you see combat? Were you scared? Owen answers politely. Briefly. He does not talk about Burma. He does not talk about parachutes. He does not talk about shooting a fighter plane with a pistol. Some things are not meant to be explained. He receives the Purple Heart for his wounds. That is enough. He goes back to his father's dry goods store. He stocks shelves. He manages inventory. He learns to smile again. Life moves forward. In 1947, he gets married. He has children. He coaches Little League Baseball. He serves on the local school board. He becomes a quiet, dependable man. The kind of man people trust. The kind who shows up on time and keeps his word. Most people know he was in the war. Some know he was a prisoner. Almost no one knows the details. Owen never joins veterans groups. He does not attend reunions. He does not sit around telling stories. He carries the memories alone. Years pass. Decades. The world changes. New wars come and go. New aircraft replace old ones. The story of what happened over Burma fades into obscurity. Then, nearly 40 years later, something unexpected happens. In the early 1980s, a military researcher in Asia is reviewing old Japanese records. Loss reports. Patrol summaries. Mission logs. Carefully kept documents stored away for decades. One report stands out. A fighter pilot from a Japanese air unit failed to return from a mission on March 31, 1944. The report mentioned something unusual. The pilot broke formation during an attack on enemy parachutists. He pursued one target alone. He did not return. Search teams later found his aircraft crashed in the jungle near a downed American bomber. The cockpit showed bullet damage. The pilot died from a small-caliber gunshot wound to the head. The Japanese investigators at the time assumed ground fire. But there were no ground forces in that area. No Chinese units. No known Allied patrols. Only falling airmen. The researcher keeps digging. He contacts American military archives. He finds an after-action report from 1945. Unconfirmed. A downed American officer claiming to have shot down a fighter with a pistol while parachuting. The dates match. The locations match. The circumstances match. The details line up too closely to ignore. The researcher submits the findings. Historians review them carefully. They compare records. They cross-check locations, times, flight paths. Slowly, reluctantly, the conclusion becomes unavoidable. It happened. In 1983, Owen Bagot receives a letter. It is brief. Formal. From the Secretary of the Air Force. It informs him that his aerial victory has been officially confirmed. The only known confirmed case of an enemy aircraft being shot down by a parachuting airman using a pistol. There is no ceremony. No new medal. Just acknowledgement. Just the truth, finally recorded. A local reporter visits Owen not long after. He asks about the incident. Owen explains it simply. No drama. No boasting. He says he was scared. He says he thought he was going to die. He says he got lucky. The reporter asks if he feels proud. Owen pauses. Then he says he is proud that he survived and came home. Nothing more. Owen lives quietly for many more years. He passes away in 2006 at the age of 85, surrounded by family. His obituary mentions his service, his business life, his community involvement, and one line about shooting down a Japanese fighter plane with a pistol while parachuting. Most readers assume it is an exaggeration. They are wrong. The records confirm it. The impossible happened. And then, almost quietly, history caught up. Years after the war, military historians would look at Owen Bagot's story and shake their heads. Not because they doubted his honesty, but because everything about the event went against what they understood about air combat, physics, and survival. A pistol is not an anti-aircraft weapon. A parachuting man is not a fighting platform. And yet, on one morning in 1944, the rules bent just enough for one impossible moment to happen. To understand why the shot mattered, you have to understand the aircraft Owen faced. The Japanese Zero was one of the most feared fighters of the early war. It was fast, light, and extremely maneuverable. Its pilots were highly trained and experienced, many with years of combat over China before the United States ever entered the war. The Zero could outturn nearly every Allied aircraft at the time. It climbed quickly and stayed in the air for long missions. It dominated skies where Allied forces were still learning how to fight it. But it had weaknesses. It had almost no armor. Its fuel tanks were unprotected. And its cockpit left the pilot exposed. Those weaknesses mattered when fighters fought fighters. They were not supposed to matter against a man falling under a parachute. Owen's pistol fired a heavy round, but it traveled slowly compared to aircraft weapons. It was accurate at short range, unreliable beyond that. For the bullet to reach the pilot, several unlikely conditions had to line up perfectly. The fighter had to slow down. The pilot had to open his canopy. The aircraft had to drift extremely close. Owen had to stay conscious despite blood loss, cold, and shock. His arm had to be steady. His timing had to be exact. And the bullet had to strike a precise spot. If any one of those things failed, Owen would have died. The Japanese pilot made the mistake that changed everything. He slowed down. He wanted to look. He assumed control. He underestimated a dying man. In war, underestimation can be fatal. Military analysts later concluded that the pilot's decision to reduce speed to near stall and open his canopy placed him inside the effective range of the pistol. At that moment, the Zero was no longer a high-speed weapon. It was just a machine. And machines fail when humans make mistakes. Owen never claimed skill or bravery. He claimed fear. He claimed desperation. He fired because he had no other choice. That is what makes the story difficult for some people to accept. There was no plan. No training. No clever tactic. Just survival instinct. After the confirmation in the 1980s, the Air Force quietly added the incident to internal training materials. Not as a combat lesson, but as a psychological one. It became an example of what the military calls survival mindset. The idea that under extreme pressure, a person can still observe, adapt, and act. Not heroically, but effectively. The case was discussed in academic journals and aviation history circles. Most treated it with caution. Extraordinary claims demand strong evidence. In this case, the evidence existed on both sides of the war. Japanese loss records. American reports. Matching dates and locations. Independent confirmation. That combination is rare, especially in jungle warfare. The Zero that crashed was never recovered. The jungle consumed it quickly. Metal rusted. Fuel burned away. Trees grew back. Nature erased the physical proof. Only paper remained. That paper changed how the story was remembered. Before confirmation, Owen's account was a curiosity. A story shared quietly, often doubted. After confirmation, it became history. But not the kind of history that gets statues. Or movies. Or medals. It was too strange. Too quiet. Too human. Owen himself never seemed comfortable with the attention. When asked why he never talked about it more, he once said something simple. He said other men died that day. He lived. That was enough. He never framed the event as victory. To him, it was an accident of timing. An intersection of fear and chance. He never used the word kill. He said the plane crashed. He did not celebrate it. That attitude mattered to those who studied him. It showed restraint. Perspective. A sense of scale. Because one impossible shot did not change the war. It did not save Burma. It did not stop the suffering. It only saved one man. But sometimes, that is enough. The men who did not survive that morning are remembered quietly in military records and family memories. Some have graves. Some do not. Their names appear in lists, etched in stone or printed on paper. Owen carried their memory with him. He remembered their faces. Their voices. Their final moments. He did not feel lucky. He felt responsible. As he aged, the physical effects of the war stayed with him. The shrapnel wound caused him to walk with a slight limp. Cold weather brought pain. Loud noises startled him even decades later. He slept lightly. He woke early. He avoided crowds. But he lived a full life. He watched his children grow. He held his grandchildren. He stayed involved in his town. He never asked for recognition. The confirmation letter from the Air Force stayed folded in a drawer. Not framed. Not displayed. Just kept. When he died in 2006, those who knew him best remembered him not as a war hero, but as a steady, quiet man who did what needed to be done. The world moved on. But the story remained. Waiting for people willing to listen. Wars leave behind mountains of paper. Orders. Logs. Reports. Casualty lists. Prison rosters. Handwritten notes smudged by rain and sweat. Most of it is dull. Most of it is routine. But buried inside those pages are moments that refuse to disappear. Owen Baggett's story survived because of records. Not memories. Not rumors. Records. During the war, both sides documented everything they could. American units tracked losses and missions. Japanese units recorded patrols and aircraft failures with careful detail. Even in the chaos of jungle warfare, paperwork followed the fighting. After the war, much of it was boxed up and forgotten. For decades, no one connected the dots. Owen's after-action report from 1945 sat quietly in an archive. It described a Zero fighter approaching a parachuting airman, slowing down, and being shot by a pistol. The report was marked unconfirmed and filed away. That label mattered. Unconfirmed meant no witnesses. Unconfirmed meant no wreckage. Unconfirmed meant no follow-up. The military had thousands of such reports. Men exhausted by combat. Prisoners returning from captivity. Stories told under stress. Many were exaggerated. Some were wrong. So the system did what it always does. It waited. On the Japanese side, the loss of a fighter on March 31, 1944, was recorded carefully. The pilot did not return. Search parties were sent. The wreckage was found. The cause of death was noted. Small caliber gunshot wound. At the time, investigators assumed ground fire. That made sense. Pilots were trained to think that way. No one imagined a pistol fired from a parachute. The explanation was accepted. And then the war ended. Years passed. In the 1970s and early 1980s, historians began re-examining World War II records more closely. Not to glorify them, but to understand them. To match losses with missions. To clarify unanswered questions. That is when the anomaly surfaced. A Japanese fighter lost under strange circumstances. An American claim dismissed for lack of proof. Same day. Same region. Same situation. The researcher who noticed this did not assume the conclusion immediately. He checked maps. Compared patrol routes. Reviewed weather conditions. Studied unit assignments. He found no ground forces operating near the crash site. No anti-aircraft fire reported. No guerrilla activity. Only American aircrew descending by parachute. That was the missing piece. When the information reached American historians, they approached it cautiously. Extraordinary claims demand extraordinary evidence. They examined Owen's report again. They noted details. The distance. The aircraft type. The pilot's behavior. The number of shots fired. The location of the crash. Everything matched. The conclusion was uncomfortable. But unavoidable. The event met the standard for confirmation. In military terms, it became a verified aerial victory. One of one. That mattered less for prestige and more for truth. Because history is not about what sounds reasonable. It is about what actually happened. Once confirmed, the incident found its way into niche publications. Aviation journals. Military history reviews. Training discussions about mindset and adaptability. It never became famous. And that was fitting. Owen never wanted it to be. The military did not stage a ceremony. There was no medal upgrade. No headlines. Just a letter. A correction to the record. A quiet acknowledgement that one man's account, long doubted, was accurate. For Owen, that was enough. He did not revisit the memory often. When he did, it came without pride. He spoke about fear, not triumph. About luck, not skill. He understood how close he came to dying. And how many others did. The story also forced historians to confront something uncomfortable. The practice of shooting parachuting airmen. During the war, this was not unusual in certain theaters. The rules of war were unevenly enforced. Some pilots followed them. Some did not. In Burma, mercy was rare. The Zero pilot who slowed down that day was following common practice. He was eliminating an enemy. He did not expect resistance. That assumption cost him his life. The records do not moralize. They do not judge. They simply record outcomes. One man died. One man lived. Decades later, readers often ask the same question. Why does this story matter? It matters because it shows the war as it really was. Not clean. Not heroic. Not fair. It shows how thin the line between life and death could be. How chance and human decisions shaped outcomes more than plans ever could. It also matters because it honors accuracy. Not exaggeration. Not legend. But evidence. Owen Bagot did not become a symbol of invincibility. He became a reminder of vulnerability. A reminder that survival sometimes depends on doing something that makes no sense until afterward. For younger generations, the story feels unreal. For older ones, it feels familiar. They understand improvisation. They understand making do with what you have. They understand that history is not written only by generals and politicians, but by ordinary men placed in impossible positions. The jungle where Owen landed still exists. It has no marker, no plaque, no memorial. It does not need one. The proof lives elsewhere. In documents. In archives. In quiet confirmations. And in the knowledge that sometimes the truth survives not because it is dramatic, but because it is precise. As the years passed, Owen Bagot learned something many veterans learn. Surviving the war was not the end of the journey. In some ways, it was the beginning of a different kind of test. He returned to civilian life carrying memories that did not fit easily into conversation. Friends asked polite questions. Neighbors wanted to hear stories. They expected excitement, danger, maybe even humor. Owen gave them none of that. He spoke carefully. Briefly. He did not want to relive the moments that came back to him without warning. Because they did. Sometimes in dreams. Sometimes while standing in line at a store. Sometimes when an engine backfired or a door slammed unexpectedly. The mind remembers what the body wants to forget. Owen never described himself as brave. He described himself as lucky. That word came up often when he spoke privately. Lucky to have lived. Lucky to have landed where he did. Lucky that the Zero slowed down. Lucky that the bullet went where it did. Lucky that disease did not kill him. Lucky that liberation came when it did. He understood how many men were not lucky. Some of them were better trained. Stronger. Smarter. They still died. That understanding shaped the rest of his life. He did not chase attention. He did not argue when people doubted the story. He did not correct strangers who assumed the obituary line was exaggerated. He let the record speak for itself. And for a long time, the record stayed silent. What Owen carried was not pride. It was weight. The weight of knowing he survived when others did not. The weight of remembering faces that disappeared into jungle canopy. The weight of remembering voices that ended mid-scream. Older veterans who knew him sensed this. They recognized the signs. The quiet listening. The early mornings. The way he never spoke over others. The way he left gatherings early. They did not press him. They understood. Survival changes a person. It sharpens some edges. It dulls others. Owen lived with that balance for the rest of his life. When the confirmation finally arrived in 1983, it stirred something unexpected. Not excitement. Not relief. But a sense of closure. For decades, the story had existed in a strange place. Not denied. Not accepted. Just suspended, like Owen himself had been, between earth and sky. The letter ended that suspension. It placed the event firmly in the past. Documented. Filed. Finished. Owen did not frame the letter. He did not show it around. But he kept it. That mattered. Because it meant the moment was no longer his burden alone. History now carried part of it. Younger historians later noted something else about the story. It lacked ego. There was no attempt to exaggerate. No attempt to build legend. Owen's original report described events plainly, without drama. That simplicity helped preserve its credibility. Men who invent stories tend to add details. Men who tell the truth tend to leave them out. The military recognized this pattern. So did historians. That is why the story survived review. That is why it was accepted. The legacy of the event is not about marksmanship. It is not about daring. It is about decision-making under extreme stress. Owen did not freeze. He observed. He waited. He acted when the moment came. That lesson appears quietly in training materials today. Not as a tactic, but as a mindset. Survival sometimes demands action that feels unreasonable. And hesitation can be fatal. The story also forces reflection on the nature of war itself. On how rules break down. On how cruelty becomes routine. On how humanity flickers unpredictably in moments of violence. The Zero pilot that day was not a monster. He was a trained serviceman following orders in a brutal environment. Owen never expressed hatred toward him. He expressed sadness. He understood both sides were caught in something larger than themselves. That perspective mattered. It kept the story from becoming propaganda. It kept it human. When Owen passed away in 2006, the world was very different. Jet fighters replaced propellers. Radar replaced eyesight. War moved faster. But the fundamentals remained. Fear. Chance. Human decision. His grave in Graham, Texas, is simple. Name. Dates. Service branch. No mention of Burma. No mention of the Zero. Visitors walk past without knowing what happened above a jungle canopy decades earlier. That simplicity reflects the man. Those who later learn the story often feel surprise. Then disbelief. Then quiet respect. Not because of the shot, but because of the restraint. Because of the humility. Because of the silence. Stories like this rarely survive. They are too strange. Too quiet. Too dependent on paperwork and patience. They require people who care about accuracy more than excitement. Researchers. Archivists. Readers. Viewers. People willing to listen without demanding spectacle. That is why stories like this matter. Not because they are unbelievable, but because they are real. And reality is often stranger than fiction. Time has a way of smoothing rough edges. Battles fade into dates. Names turn into numbers. Places become lines on a map. What once felt immediate and terrifying slowly becomes distant and abstract. But some moments resist that process. They stay sharp. They remain uncomfortable. They refuse to become legend. Owen Baggett's story is one of those moments. Nothing about it fits neatly into how people like to remember war. There is no grand victory. No turning point. No cheering crowds or dramatic speeches. Just a man falling through cold air, bleeding, afraid, doing the only thing he could think of to stay alive. That is why the story matters. Not because it is impressive, but because it is honest. The jungle where Owen landed remains today much as it was in 1944. Dense. Green. Indifferent. Rain still falls. Insects still hum. Trees still rise and fall with the seasons. No marker stands there. No one visits. And that feels appropriate. The land does not remember. People do. Or they forget. History often remembers leaders, generals, and machines. It remembers formations, strategies, and outcomes. It rarely remembers moments like this, moments that happen too fast, too quietly, and too far from witnesses. Owen's moment survived because it was written down. Because someone kept a report. Because someone else, decades later, cared enough to compare records. Because truth sometimes needs patience. After Owen's death, his family found the letter confirming the event among his belongings. Folded. Yellowed with age. Not displayed. Not emphasized. Just kept. That tells you everything you need to know about the man. He did not define himself by that moment. He defined himself by what came after. Raising children. Serving his community. Showing up day after day. Living quietly. He understood something many never learn. Surviving does not make you special. It makes you responsible. Responsible to remember. Responsible to live well. Responsible to carry the memory of those who did not return. The men who fell that morning over Burma did not get letters decades later. They did not get confirmations or footnotes in history journals. Their stories ended in the air or beneath the jungle canopy. They are remembered by names on stones, by families, by fragments of letters. Owen never forgot them. That is why he spoke softly. That is why he avoided celebration. That is why he never treated the event as a triumph. He understood that war is not about winning moments. It is about enduring them. The Japanese pilot who died that day is also part of the story. He had a name, a history, a family, a record of skill and service. He was not a villain in Owen's telling. He was an opponent. A human being making a fatal mistake in a brutal system that rewarded aggression. War consumes people on all sides. That truth matters. Because remembering war honestly requires resisting the urge to simplify it. The story of Owen Bagot is not about proving that anything is possible. It is about showing that impossibility sometimes happens anyway. Not through strength. Not through planning. But through a split-second decision made under unbearable pressure. The laws of physics did not change that morning. Probability did not disappear. But chance, fear, and human error aligned in a way that allowed one man to live. That alignment is rare. That is why the story stands alone. There are no other confirmed cases like it. Not before. Not since. And that should not inspire imitation. It should inspire understanding. Understanding of how thin the line is. Understanding of how quickly circumstances can turn. Understanding of how ordinary people are forced into extraordinary situations without warning. For those watching this story today, decades removed from the event, the lesson is not about weapons or tactics. It is about mindset, awareness, adaptability, and humility. Owen did not believe he beat the odds. He believed the odds allowed him through. That difference matters. As time passes, fewer people remain who lived through that war. Their voices grow quieter. Their stories risk being lost beneath louder narratives. That is why telling stories like this matters. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But accurately. Respectfully. Quietly. So that when people walk past a simple grave in a small Texas town, or read an old report in an archive, or hear a story told calmly without embellishment, they understand that history is made of moments like this. Moments that do not ask to be remembered, but deserve to be. Owen Bagot does not need a monument in the jungle. He does not need a statue or a medal. His legacy lives where it belongs. In records that tell the truth. In lessons about survival. In the understanding that courage often looks like endurance, not action. And in the knowledge that sometimes, when everything is lost and no options remain, a person can still choose to act. Not to be remembered, but to stay alive. That is what happened at 15,000 feet over Burma on March 31, 1944. And that is why the story remains.